Hey guys, here for The Flash, Season 3, Episode 13, Attack on Gorilla City. And guys, I was definitely really looking forward to this episode for a couple of reasons. One, because as you guys know, I really have loved everything about the Gorilla Grodd story. I think it's been very interesting. But this very much reminded me of what they did last season, where we had a couple episodes that they were good. They were definitely good, but the highlight of last year, one of the highlights of last season by far, was the Earth 2 episodes. Those were some of the best episodes I think the show has ever done, and Gorilla City had a lot to live up to because of that. But it very much seemed like that's where we were headed, with this, that this is going to be the Earth 2 story. So I was very interested in seeing how this episode was, and I have to say that while I do think this episode was good, I definitely did enjoy it, this was quite disappointing. I really expect a lot from this episode. The title is extremely misleading, and in general, I really just felt this episode was kind of just half-assed. I'm not gonna lie. I really felt like this episode, they didn't give it their all. They didn't do all they could. It was a setup to next week, but it didn't really stand out as its own episode. At least Welcome to Earth 2 did a great job at the world building, and this episode just didn't really do that. But let's just get into this episode because I definitely do want to talk about it. So we start off and we see Harry is running through the jungle and something leaps out and grabs him. It was really cool to see Wells 2 or Harry or whatever you want to call him back. I thought that was really cool to see again. And it's kind of a hard task too because you have Tom Cavanaugh here have to play like 3 different characters in this episode. But Jessie tells the team their father disappeared 2 weeks ago when he went to Gorilla City on Earth 2. They sent Grodd there when he went after Caitlin, and they received a mathematical cryptogram from the gorillas to Harry to meet with them. And he mounts an expedition with 10 other people, but they failed multiple check-ins. In a search party found the bodies of other expedition members beaten to death. He wasn't there, and Barry figures that the gorillas ended up taking him captive. So HR comes in. Jessie assumes that it's her father until the team explains that they tell HR that Harry has been kidnapped and Jessie is his daughter, and HR apologizes, realizing that, he's not obviously, Harry, so Barry remembers one of the future headlines about Central City recovering from a gorilla attack, and he figures that Grodd is planning to come back to their Earth, and if they can save Harry, then it will, in fact, change the future, because he obviously does not want this gorilla attack to happen, and Barry insists on going to Earth 2 to rescue his friend, and Cisco and Caitlin both agree to go with him, and Jessie insists on going as well, but Barry says that their Central City needs protecting while he's gone, and Wally demonstrates his super speed, and Jessie unenthusiastically says that it's awesome. She clearly does not, have feelings for him, which doesn't make sense later in the episode. We'll get into that, but this was quite disappointing. Right off the bat, it was disappointing. I was really expecting a nice team up here between Barry, Kid Flash, and Jesse Quick, but we didn't get that at all. Jessie and Wally have to stay back, and not really for any given reason other than you just need something for HR to do, which I'll get into very quickly. So at the police lab, Barry asks Julian to cover for him. He finally explains that a friend is lost on a parallel Earth, and when Barry says that Caitlin's going with him, Julian warns that Caitlin can't control her ice powers as it is, and he's intrigued by the idea of sentient apes, and he agrees to cover for Barry. So that night, Barry talks to Iris about what to do while he's gone. She says that Barry doesn't have to do it for her, and Barry tells her that everything that he does is in fact for her. And Joe and Wally say goodbye to Barry, and Julian arrives in jungle gear, and he says that Singh thinks that he's out of town, a conference, and Barry agrees. So Caitlin says that Julian doesn't need to come, but he tells that he wouldn't miss the chance to go to another dimension, so he shows them the gun that he brought, and Barry assures Jessie that she'll see Harry soon, and Cisco then opens a breach, and the 4 travelers go through. They arrive in a jungle in Africa on Earth 2, and they follow Harry's GPS, which was cool to see Earth 2 again, but you just didn't feel that, that world in this episode. Like, Earth 2 just felt like such an afterthought here, and we'll get into why, but as they go, Barry explains that Grodd will need Harry to open a breach to their Earth, and if they rescue Harry, then they will, in fact, prevent the gorilla attack, which is what Barry's basically trying to do. So then we get at Star Labs. Wally finds Jessie, suggests they go for a run. She puts him on and says she's worried about her father. Now remember, Barry said that he left them there to, make sure that they can go after all the crime going on, which worked very well last year. I mean, last year they had a very good tie-in where Barry and Cisco were both on Earth 2, while there was this crazy metahuman that none of them else knew how to deal with. Now it was kind of a interesting scene because you saw a bunch of other different people who don't usually take on these metahumans have to do that, and it was definitely a nice change of pace here. That's not the case in this episode, really, though. I really did not feel we needed any of this. Honestly, Wally and Jessie probably should have just gone on the mission. I don't really know. I mean, I understand Barry's reasoning, but it just felt like a dumb excuse to get these two to have scenes together, and Joe and Iris come in. Wally points out that Jessie's been acting weird ever since she got there. They figure that Jessie's just worried about her father, and they get a warning about a bank robbery. So Jessie comes back, and she and Wally speed to the bank, and immediately I'm like, that's what you were so worried about? A bank robbery? You couldn't stay, you had to have both of them stay back for that? Yeah, because a bank robbery is so threatening. There's nothing scarier than a bank robber. It just felt so dumb that out of all the things that, Kid Flash and Jesse Quick could have stayed back for, it has to be a bank robbery. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. I don't know why the show went in this direction, especially because they've been conjuring up all kinds of different metahumans left and right. They could have done any kind of metahuman, and I mean, do the Trickster even. Do the Trickster. That would have actually made more sense if they did the Trickster. But no, for some reason they did a bank robbery, and it does not at all go with the plot of the episode. The plot of the episode said they dealt with, like, this magician, but that's not what happened. So, Kid Flash defeats them in a matter of seconds. People come up to applaud Kid Flash, and that's it. So there really was no reason for them to stay back. It's very dumb they went in this direction. I don't know why that happened. That really is a testament to how lazy this episode is. So as the group follows Harry's GPS, Caitlin tells Julian that she met her evil doppelganger on Earth 2, and she explains that Killer Frost is dead. And we do get some really good stuff with Caitlin and Julian here, because yes, this was the first time where we met Killer Frost, and Julian assures that it's not going to happen to her. Caitlin says it's nice having Julian there. They continue on ahead. They track Harry's phone and find it on the ground. Barry realizes it's a trap. Someone shoots them with the tranq darts, and they all go down in a matter of seconds. Grodd then drops down from the tree with his fellow gorillas, says that he knew that they would come, and when the team wakes up, they find themselves in cells in Gorilla City. Here's where we get to my biggest problem with the episode. That this episode's called Attack on Gorilla City, but the majority of this episode is the entire team in a prison cell, which is just not interesting at all. I mean, it's boring, honestly. This was quite boring. Barry and Cisco realize that something's negating their powers, and Barry figures that Grodd is dampening them, and Harry comes out, and Grodd speaks through Harry's mouth, which was really cool to see Harry have to translate through Grodd. Again, it's a very daunting task for Tom Cavanaugh. He did and obviously he rise to the occasion. At this point, I think he really can do no wrong. But Grodd says that he needs Barry's help and says he's forced to serve under the rule of Savitar, and Savitar's the ruler of Gorilla City, and he wants to rule the humans. So Grodd claims that Savitar is afraid the humans are going to attack, and now that Barry's there, Savitar will attack the humans. So we kind of got a Play of the Apes situation here, and they will be sent to the arena to be executed, and Savitar will kill them himself. And if Savitar is defeated, then the gorillas would no longer follow him, and Barry refused to kill anyone. But Grodd says that the only law gorillas understand, if Savitar fails, then Grodd takes his place and will keep the gorillas in Gorilla City, which is what Savitar doesn't want to do. Savitar wants to extract them, and Grodd wants to keep them around. So Grodd says that Earth 1 is still his home, and there are those among them that he will never forget, and he drops his control of Harry, comes in, and I will definitely admit, I was into this story. Like, I like where we went with Grodd here. It's just, we didn't get to see enough of it. Like, we barely saw any of this, like I said, because 99% of this episode takes place in a prison cell. So, he says if they kill Savitar, then Central City will in fact be spared, and obviously, Barry thinks that's how it's gonna go, that they'll be able to do this, and they'll be able to stop the gorilla attack. So, back at Star Labs, Wally approaches Jessie, asks why she's being so cold to him, and she wonders why she never heard from him now that he has powers, and Wally asks her to stay. Jessie says that she can't and wonders if Wally was attracted to Speed and not her. A really dumb subplot, in my opinion. I have no idea why they went in this direction with her, where she literally thinks that he was just attracted to her because of Speed, and she figures that he's complete now that he has Speed, walks away. I not give a shit about this, honestly. I liked Wally and Jessie, what we got of them, but this was just dumb. They did a really great job in episode 4 of having these two, build a relationship, and here, I just didn't care. I thought this was really dumb overall. It seemed like it was just a reason to get these two to have a conflict, and again, it really does go with a lot of the tedious storylines this season has been following. So Caitlin asks Barry if he can take a life, and before he can respond, Savitar and Grodd come in, and when Grodd claims he's going to tell Savitar that humans were there, Savitar slaps him aside, demands to know why they came there. Barry insists that he meant them no harm, but Savitar speaks through Cisco and says that they all die so that the gorillas can see Savitar's power, and Barry offers to fight Savitar, and if he beats him, then Savitar lets his friends go. They promise to leave alone, and Savitar promises they will suffer, and then he will kill them all. So Flash taken to the area, faces Savitar. He speeds forward, but Savitar knocks him across the arena and charges, and Savitar smashes him down. Flash speeds around the arena walls. His teammates tell him to use a lightning throw, and he accelerates around the arena walls. Savitar leaps into the air. He unleashes a shockwave when he hits, knocking Flash down. And when Julie mentions reversal of their fortune, Cisco gets an idea and tells Flash to pull a reverse Flash, and he slams a vibrating hand into Savitar, knocks him out, and however, the hero says he won't kill Savitar, and he yells at the gorilla, saying that the humans only want peace, and Grodd, as his men fire a tranq dart into Flash's leg, knocking him out, and again, you just don't feel the weight of this. It feels so rushed that all of a sudden this is happening. It feels like something we should have gotten a little bit later in the episode, but no, they just get right to it, and then we're back in the cell. So, right when interesting stuff happens in this episode, we go back to the cell. It's just, it was dumb. But Harry's in the cell, he's catatonic, Grodd's speaking through him. He says that he's now the ruler of Gorilla City. Barry realized that Grodd is the one who actually wants war, and Cisco wonders why Grodd doesn't just kill them, because, that would be the logical thing to do, but Grodd says that he needs Cisco to open a breach to Earth-1, because apparently Cisco can just do this on a whim, which I didn't think was possible, but apparently it is. And once his army goes through, they're going to destroy Central City. And Barry says that Grodd can't do this because it's logical. But Grodd says he's a gorilla and it's kill or be killed. And he drops his control of Harry, comes in, says that Barry will die. And that night, Barry tries to phase through the cell bars without success. Harry wakes up and Caitlin assures him that Jesse's fine. He thanks them for coming. And Julian worries that they'll never escape. So Barry insists that when there's life, there is hope. And, they're really worried that they're going to be here forever because they really are severely outnumbered here. I mean, you can tell that there are so many gorillas, there aren't as many humans, and Cisco suggested they kill him so Grodd can't open a breach, and just that fear of Cisco being killed, it's not going to happen, but this was a well-done scene where you think, holy shit, the only way to do this might have to be to kill Cisco, and wants Caitlin to do it, because Grodd doesn't know that she has the cold powers, and if she does it to him, then it'll work out better. So Julian warns Caitlin if she kills someone, then she will be Killer Frost for the rest of her life. And she wonders if Julian came to protect her, and he says that he doesn't want to see her become something that she's not. And Caitlin says that no one's going to kill Cisco, but Barry says that the only way is for one of them to die. And for me, I like this scene, but I feel like it would have been more effective if we got this next week, have all this build-up with Caitlin being Killer Frost, and then get this whole idea of maybe having to kill Cisco. That would have been a lot more interesting to do, and I don't know why they didn't decide to go in that direction. It just kind of felt weird that they went in this direction with it. But at Star Labs, HR finds Jessie, and she explains about Wally wanting her to stay there. She wonders if it's the right thing, and HR tells her she has to go for love or she'll live with regret, and he wishes Jessie luck and leaves. And I did like the scenes between HR and Jessie, but again, they're not really needed. There's not really much at stake happening here, but Grodd returns to the cells. He finds Barry dead on the floor. Caitlin says that he started coughing violently and then collapses. The injury must have crushed into one of his kidneys. And Grodd enters the cell, confirms that Barry's corpse is cold, says that Barry was of no use to him anyway. So he drags Barry out, tosses him aside, and then leaves. And once Grodd is gone, Harry whispers to Barry that their captor's gone. He vibrates his molecules to normal temperature and assures Caitlin that she didn't freeze him too much. He then frees his friends, and they head out, and basically he speeds his teammates out into the jungle beyond Grodd's powers. They hear gorillas approaching. Cisco opens a breach. The team goes through and the breach slosses, and Grodd roars as he arrives. So, yeah, it really was just that easy. If Cisco opened the breach, they're gone, and for now, it seems that they have defeated Grodd. So the team then arrived back at Star Labs, and this kind of pissed me off. I was really hoping we get a really cool cliffhanger here, but we just didn't, and they see their friends are waiting, and Harry thanks them for their help, takes in his doppelganger, HR. HR admits that he's not a technical genius, but Cisco admits that they couldn't do it without him, and later Wally comes to see Jessie as she looks after her sleeping father, and she apologized for her earlier behavior. Wally says that he understands, and Jessie asks him what his reaction would be if she decides to stay on Earth-1, and Wally kisses her, and this just felt weird, that she's all of a sudden deciding that she's going to stay on Earth-1, and not only that, they're apparently planning on moving in together, which it's strange. I mean, especially after she had that whole thing where she was angry at him, why all of a sudden is she head over heels in love with him? It felt so broken. It didn't really feel like it made sense here, but HR comes in, is happy that Jessie took his advice, and Wally and Jessie quickly excuse themselves, and Julian then goes after Caitlin, apologizes for overstepping earlier. She says that she likes him, but is afraid of her powers and what they could do to anyone who gets close to him. And I like that. I like that Caitlin tells Julian to fear her, and Julian agrees and suggests they get dinner and be afraid together. And this gives them a reason to be together. Julian's really one of the only people that understands Caitlin. They're going through a very similar circumstance. I don't know if I love the idea of these two being together, but I did like seeing them at least bonding, and they end up walking off So Barry tells Iris they change the future without changing who they are. He figures that they can stop Savitar since they were able to defeat Grodd, and Iris wonders how he stays positive in the face of overwhelming odds. Barry tells her he plans to live a long life with Iris and nothing will take it from him, and they kiss. But then we get to the ending where things obviously aren't over because this is a 2-episode, this is a 2-episode arc where Grodd rules Gorilla City. He tells Gypsy to open the breaches. His army will march on Central City, and he is going to get his revenge. And that is the way this episode ends. Really interesting stuff overall. Let's get into this episode and where we're going to go for next week. So, overall, guys, while I definitely did enjoy this first part, this was quite disappointing, I have to say. I mean, the episode's called Attack on Gorilla City, and, ergo, I expect to see a lot of Gorilla City, and we really didn't. I mean, sure, the episode took place in Earth 2, most of it, and a lot of it was seeing, Savitar and Grodd, but other than that, we had one brief scene of Barry defeating Savitar in a nice fight there, which I thought was well done. I definitely did like the fight, don't get me wrong, I thought the fight stuff in this episode was really well done. But it felt like they were severely lacking on a budget, and because of them not having the budget, they couldn't really go for it. I think they wanted to go a lot further with the story, and they just couldn't for this episode. I mean, most of the episode was them in prison, which is just boring. There was nothing interesting going on with them in prison. I feel like they should have shown a lot more of Gorilla City. Like I said, one of the best parts of Earth 2 was the contrast between that and Earth 1, seeing how different everyone was, seeing the different personalities everyone became, seeing, the different stuff. We didn't get to see any of that, and I kind of wanted to see more of that here. I wanted to see, policewoman Iris. I wanted to see the Joe that sings and plays piano and things like that. I wanted to see, this. Now, I know Joe obviously died, but I wanted to see, I wanted to see those characters again. We just didn't get to see them, and it pissed me off, I would say. I really wanted to see more of these characters, and they didn't really do anything. They didn't really show them or anything like that, and I wanted to see... And Reverb, we could have seen him. He wasn't anywhere to be found. It just felt so weird that we're on Gorilla City, but it really was not an attack on Gorilla City. It was an attack on prison, is really what it was, and I did think there were some interesting conflicts going on in this episode, but... Barry defeating Grodd as easy as he did, it just felt very lazy. Like, there's another episode. Why do you have him defeat Grodd in this episode? Don't have him win. Have something bad happen and have this awesome cliffhanger that wants us to come back. Because, honestly, there's nothing that really hooked me in. There's nothing like, oh, I can't wait for next week's episode. I obviously knew Grodd was going to start another army against Central City. That's nothing that really was that surprising. I knew that, obviously, this wasn't going to be the end. They said this was a 2-episode arc to begin with, and I don't know why they didn't have a really awesome cliffhanger, because Earth 2 did have an awesome cliffhanger. Now, what it was, I can't really remember, but it was extremely well done, and they did a very good job with it last year, and I really was expecting that for this episode, and we just didn't get that, and I was very disappointed by the way that went. However, I did think there was some interesting character stuff going on here. First of all, this whole idea of Barry changing destiny. He's now convinced that the entire future rests in his hands, and that he can just change anything, and I think Barry, he's looking at this way too easily. I mean, there's a big difference between defeating Grodd, who is a gorilla in Earth 2, and defeating the god of speedsters. I mean, he's not the god of speedsters. As powerful as Grodd is, because he is pretty damn powerful, he's not the god of speedsters, and that's something that is just, Savitar is ostensibly much more powerful than him, so that's something that Barry isn't really taking into consideration. It really is not the best approach, to just think, oh, I got this, there's no possible way this won't go well. I want Barry to have some sort of doubts, but he doesn't even have a shred of it in him. There's no worry in Barry whatsoever. Nothing seems to faze him, and that really did not go with the Barry we've been getting here. I don't like this confidence in Barry. I understand that obviously Barry wants to save Iris, and he wants to do what he can to prove to her. I think he wants to have that confidence, but there's just no doubt. He's not worried about this at all, that this isn't going to go well. He thinks that this is going to go perfectly, and I just don't like that. I don't like that he doesn't have any sort of doubt in him that this isn't going to go well, because I think he knows deep down, I would think that he knows deep down this really is not going to go perfectly, and especially now he hasn't defeated Savitar yet. I mean, he hasn't defeated Grodd either, so he really needs to think about that, and that was something I thought was interesting. I did love where we went with Caitlin here, where Caitlin and Julian, you can see that Julian genuinely does care for Caitlyn, and he knows what she's going through, and he kind of is helping her with Killer Frost, and I like the direction that's going. You know, Caitlyn's wanted to subdue Killer Frost, and he's not going to take away her powers because he wants her to look at them in a good way. But he's also trying to subdue them, Ben. I like the direction that's going. I like seeing Caitlyn in this episode. Harry Wells, they did really nothing with because he was Grodd the entire episode and was possessed by him. So it was cool to see Tom Cavanaugh acting like, you know, Grodd and everything, but they just didn't do really much with him. And then by far worst part of this episode had to be Wally and Jessie. I liked these two in episode 4. I don't know what happened here. I really don't. I think what happened is that they need a storyline for Wally and Jessie. The bank robbers ended very quickly. I don't know why that ended so quickly. Honestly, I would have rather had an episode of Wally and Jessie just taking down bank robbers because we rarely get to see those two work together. But no, we were completely wasted of that, and instead we got this ridiculous storyline where Jessie for some reason thought that Wally was just in love with her for speed reasons, which was really dumb overall, and in general it just didn't really amount to much. I mean, now they're gonna move in together. It just, 1 second you say, oh, I want nothing to do with him, and you seem very you know, annoyed by him trying to pursue you, and the next second you're doing the exact same thing. It felt really off. I don't know if there was a scene missing, but it just felt really off from what we were supposed to get here, and it really did deteriorate from a lot of the episode. And anytime a scene from them went on, I just thought it dragged, and I like these actors. I think the actress who plays Jessie is really great in the role, and Wally as well. Wally isn't really that great. I've never really thought that actor was that great. I still don't think he's that great. But the actor who plays Jessie is good enough, and they just didn't really do much with her. HR as well, they didn't do much with him either. They could have done a lot more here. There was definitely a lot more they could have done, and just in general, this was quite disappointing. I was expecting a lot more from this arc overall. I was expecting to go in a different direction. Now, there is one episode left, and I hope that is the episode that does deliver, and not just be an episode where everyone's in prison the whole episode, and there's not really a ton at stake here. But in general, I definitely did like the ideas in this episode. I just felt the episode in general wasn't as well thought out as it possibly could have been. But I do like that they tried to change things up. I did like the change of pace this episode had. I just felt that in general, it just wasn't as good as, you know, they really wanted to be. I didn't really get that epic feel here. And overall, I am going to give The Flash Season 3, Episode 13, Attack on Gorilla City, a 3.5 out of 5 or a B-. So, guys, remember The Flash. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts on it. Did you like this storyline? I didn't dislike it. I just was very disappointed by the direction it went. I felt they could have gone in some much better directions. It was very rushed. It was just a very abrupt start, and I feel like they could have handled this a lot better. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in our next, which will be for Legends tomorrow, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.